A lot of focus on the economy, about legislation pending on Capitol Hill, COVID mandates, and what that means politically. We've shown you this before, the Quinnipiac poll and the approval-disapproval for President Joe Biden. Again, underwater in this poll and a number of other polls. But as you look deeper into handling of the issues, even on the coronavirus, which he was succeeding at, he's upside down. And when it comes to the economy, even more so, kind of matching the approval number. If you break out independents, it's much lower. Let's bring in our panel. Fox News senior political analyst Brit Hume, Ben Domenech, publisher at The Federalist, Juan Williams is a Fox News analyst, and Jason Riley, Wall Street Journal columnist and senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute. Brit, what about this current time and, where we are on the economy and how much the administration has to do with it?
Well, I think we're in a recovery. There's no doubt about that, and job growth is to be expected. And when it comes in low, people notice, and I think that's part of what we're seeing in these polling numbers. Brett, some crises occur to an administration and a president because of that administration's policies. The Afghanistan withdrawal is one example. The mess at the border is another. Some sort of happen to presidents. This chip shortage that we're dealing with now, the continuing problem with the COVID vaccine and the attendant effects on the economy. These are things that happen to this president in a way, and either way they happen, it is up to the president to deal with them, and a president who cannot seem to deal with them is going to be in political trouble, and I think that's part of what we're seeing now.
And Juan, what about, is it happening to him, or is this an action by the president that's somehow spurring some of this on?
Well, I think that if you're looking at, standard measures, economic measures of seasonal job growth, you would say, given what the president has done so far, you would have looked for far better numbers coming out of September. The problem with that, I think, is lack of context. Clearly, we are still battling the coronavirus, and it's still having an impact on our economy, Brett. And I think one consequence of that is it distorts the normal September, back to work, fall, hiring and layoff patterns. Right now, we actually saw more growth in July and August. They had to go back and up those numbers more than we would have anticipated. So right now, it looks like, we're going to be going through this for a while. Some big companies have announced now they won't be going back until even past January, and I was surprised at that. So you have to keep that in mind. I mean, right now, if you stop and think about it, though, from the Biden administration perspective, we're under 5% unemployment, down from 6.3%, I think it was in January. That's pretty good. You just heard the president say added 5 million jobs under his time. Again, that's very good. But, to Britt's point, when the American people look at those numbers, they can be disappointed because they're not putting all the context in.
Jason, critics of this administration would say that they're looking towards the prescriptions to be exact opposite. Instead of incentivizing to create more jobs, they're prospectively, if they get the legislation passed, going to raise taxes on a lot of these companies.
Yes, that is the plan, and that's also the problem. I mean, Juan points to the unemployment rate below 5%. There are two reasons unemployment falls. One is because more people who are looking for work find work. The other reason is because fewer people are looking for work. And the problem here is that that latter cause could be what we're dealing with today. There are 5 million fewer people working today than before the pandemic. And the question then becomes, why is that? Why do we have so many job openings and so few people looking for work? And the question there is whether there are too many incentives in place not to work, whether these, we've ended the supplemental uninsurance program. I think we waited too long to end it, but that was a good thing to do. But we still have lots of checks going out to families with kids, rental assistance, and so forth. We have a lot of incentives in place for people not to return to the labor force. And going forward, this administration wants to increase those incentives not to return to the labor force. Even giving families, six-figure income families, up to $200,000, incentives not to return to work. And that could be a problem going forward, not just in terms of the unemployment rate, but in terms of the productivity of the country. Fewer people working means we're a less productive country, and that could, in the long run, affect our standard of living.
You know, Ben, I have a buddy who's a Chevy dealer who has been telling me about the chip shortage forever, that he couldn't get cars, and this was a coming crisis. Now, more and more people see it, but it's not just for getting cars or electronics. It's actually a security threat for the country. Take a listen to the GM president on this.
The reason why, and people don't fully understand this sometimes, is, you know, to get profitable, vertically integrated chip manufacturing, it's billions of dollars to facilitate it, which, you know, can happen, but then you have to have millions of, you know, of uses for it. I mean, millions and millions and millions of volume to go in there to make that efficient and productive and profitable. Any one automaker, probably it's a very difficult business case for it, but if the auto industry and the country come together and do that, that's a big deal.
But you're even talking, if you do it full out, Ben, maybe 2-3 years before the U.S. is able to handle or get a grip on creating some of those chips?
And that's the problem that I think that we're actually discussing writ large with the economy as a whole. So many of the fixes that the Biden administration wants to bring to bear are things that aren't even going to be wound up within the next calendar year and a half, if not beyond that. And I think that with this semiconductor crisis, you see again a situation where you can't just flip a switch and turn things on. I think that this Southwest Airlines situation, where you see so many pilots and crew potentially involved in a mass revolt against the vaccine mandate that has been pressed upon them, I fear that that type of reaction is going to spread throughout our economy, and that we really are potentially on the cusp of a number of serious crises that, you know, the White House really is already dealing with so many in so many different areas. I'm not sure that they really have a solution that is going to be able to be brought to bear in time to make a meaningful difference for people in the economy in a short term.
What about that, Britt? The vaccine mandates and how that affects the whole thing?
Well, the vaccine mandates don't help, I don't think, because anything that incentivizes people who are concerned about it not to go to work or to be willing to lose their jobs is going to hurt the economy. There's just no two ways about that. And the workforce participation, as Jason has pointed out, is already a problem. One more thing, Brett, on that semiconductor shortage. If anything could bring the Taiwan policy and the threats to Taiwan into sharp focus, that certainly is it, because so much of what we get from in semiconductors comes from Taiwan. We need that production in the near term and possibly in the long. And if that is cut off in any way, we are really in trouble.
And speaking of that, Juan, China policy from the Biden administration seems a little nebulous. It doesn't seem like it's nailed down exactly what it is. And with, as Britt's talking about, the threats to Taiwan in just recent days with these bombers and jets flying over, it seems urgent.
Yeah, I would say so. You know, I mean, clearly the president of Taiwan came out and said she's not going to be intimidated by that kind of behavior. Now, the U.S., as you know, recently, you know, strengthened its relationship with Australia, strengthened its relationship in terms of military supplies, talking about semiconductors, chips, with lots of the people in that Pan-Asian basin to try to say that we are united, we're not giving up on that area. But when you use the word nebulous, I guess you mean, are we going to be more pointed in taking on the Chinese and challenging the Chinese? Right. And there, I think that's an ongoing issue as to how do you do that. Clearly, we're not interested in, bombs and fighting a war with them. But I think you have to be very clear about the fact that they are aggressive in terms of their behavior in that region, and that we should not be backing off, in my opinion. But yeah. And, but I think in the semiconductors, you just you gotta believe in American ingenuity. You know, our defense industry is the best in the world. I don't think anybody would contest that.
Last thing quickly, Jason, did you see this Ben and Jerry's interview where they couldn't answer why they were not selling?
Yeah, I don't know what you can add to that, Brett.
It just speaks for itself.
They were really caught flat-footed there. Yeah, it really speaks for itself.
All right.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.